Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Friendgame podcast. I'm your host today, Alex, here with the boy.
The game is getting more, or sorry, the nickname's getting stupider and stupider every episode.
Well, you know,
Just like me.
I think we're just really tired today. That's why I'm just you know shortening
No
things out.
energy to, no energy to think of something funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's your excuse every other time?
Maybe it's just because I'm not funny. All right. Well, we're just gonna jump right into it today. No
That's what I
fun
like to
games.
hear.
All serious. We
Yes.
dedicated it a long outline that's like I can't say that with a straight face because
No.
it's not long at all. But today we're talking about looter games, as I've put them in that sort of category. I figured that today it wouldn't be a bad idea to just talk about genres of games that we like. So
hmm Yeah,
today,
but between the two of us, we've have a pretty wide array of stuff that we've played. Obviously, there's gonna be stuff that we haven't between the both of us that we've missed, but we're gonna try and cover this genre because we've actually played a lot of this genre accidentally.
I think
So,
it's funny too that we're starting with this genre because this I think this is a genre that we spent the most time playing at the beginning of the pandemic. Really,
yeah,
yeah. Um,
and this is one like a couple of games specifically that just happen to be in this genre are ones that I just like frequently revisit. Just like
yeah,
every like once a year, I'll go back and play one of these games just like because I haven't played it for a while, just because it's
right,
fun. So,
right.
but we can get into it. I don't know if you have a particular order you would wish to talk about these in, so I'll follow your lead.
No, but I just wanted to give like a small introduction of like the way that I categorize these games for these games in particular for like this sort of category is they're looters because loot is kind of the central point of the game. Um, so these are games that you're gonna grind out a lot of hours to get gear and stuff, and
Mhm.
that is the main gameplay loop.
Yeah, and like with any like movie or book or video game or anything, everything's gonna fall into more than one genre.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, let me open this again. Like Diablo, for example, people classify that as like an action RPG also,
Yeah.
which is correct, but not all action RPGs are also looters like Diablo is.
Yep.
And then like vice versa, not all looters are also action RPGs and all that. So,
Yeah, I think like the best description of word like the 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 two games that come to mind for me to diversify them are Diablo falls under a looter, and something like the Soul series, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, falls more into the action RPG genre. So um, I guess we can just get right into it. We already said one of the names, the Diablo series. Have you
yeah.
played any of them?
I have only played Diablo 3. So,
That is the
might
most
not
looter game out of the.
right, yeah, cuz judging by like what I've heard and seen from others, Diablo 2 at least was more dungeon crawly
Yeah,
than the others.
yeah. Diablo 2, I would still put Diablo in general as a looter, because it kind of falls into that same loop of like Borderlands, where you you can finish the main plot and then be done with it, or you can finish the main plot and continue to like find that.
Continue to go and find items and
Yeah,
refine your builds and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that kind of thing. And there's always like secrets and stuff to go and find, of course, right? So, uh,
Yes, my knowledge on the Diablo series is a little bit limited. I do remember though, like I still hear people talk about like they give a game the Diablo 3 treatment, where it's just like they just throw items at you
Yeah,
nonstop, constantly. There's just items everywhere when you're running through levels and stuff,
yeah,
and that's what like I've heard people give that comparison when they talk about like Borderlands and stuff, where they're just
mm,
like everything you kill, it drops an item,
yeah,
and like legendaries can just like fall out of the sky, and like
yeah.
it's a looter game, so that they're just constantly throwing tons of items at you, which I feel like is a good thing if the loot is the main drive of that kind of game.
Yeah, that was their main design. Was They decided to change after the initial release of the game, um, because they went back and they were like, well, our entire point of this game is to give you the loot, so then why don't we just give them the loot, right? So it was they definitely did a really good job. I mean, a lot of games have fallen in or followed in their footsteps at this point, right? You know, like you mentioned, Borderlands just kind of showers you with loot too, right? So uh, I definitely say that that is a good aspect of that game, is that if you're gonna get stuff regardless of what you're doing in that game, which is fun.
Hmm. It's kind of like a like a double-edged sword though when you're talking about looter games. Like getting showered in loot is good, yes, but the loot also has to be meaningful.
Yeah, and
And we're gonna try our hardest to not talk about any negative things about the games we're talking about, just because it's gonna turn into a rant. Then we're gonna try and talk about the things we like about these types of games. But
yeah,
a complaint that one might have is that yeah, I have all this stuff, but like it doesn't mean anything, or it's not useful, or it's not interesting.
I think that
So
I think Diablo does a pretty good job at making the loot, making the classes diverse and all the loot that those classes get meaningful in some way. Because there's so many different combinations of loot or like gear, you know, and there's so many different like rolls on those gear that you can get. Like it makes you know, you can get the piece of gear, but maybe you're missing, you know, some stats on it. But then you can be like, oh well, at least I have it now. I can now go and chase after a better version of it, right? Um,
right, but then there's also like that caters to that type of player, the min max
yeah.
player, but that like not everybody is a min max player. So if you're just looking for like I want these items. I don't care what the tertiary stats are and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like you can still do that, and it's still enjoyable too. Because
Yeah.
for me, it kind of depends on the game
Yeah.
if I like to do that or not. Because like for the very short time that I like was playing Diablo,
Mm-hmm.
um, as you go up in like difficulties with all like the levels and the rifts and stuff that you can do, since there's so many items, it's a little easier. I felt to get like actually like best in slot stats on gear, because then you could put gems in stuff, and then you could re-roll a stat
Per item.
per weapon, so it was a
Yeah.
little more like achievable.
Yeah. I.
Whereas like Borderlands 3, up until recently, the end game stats and stuff you really wanted to go for was like you could get like the anointments on your weapons,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and you couldn't re-roll them until recent. There's been an
Oh
update
really?
since then where you can now re-roll them, so it's a little easier. It's not as like
Mm.
grindy to like, oh cool, I got this item, but the anointment is for like a character that I'm not even playing, because
Right.
you could get like certain action skill anointments that are just like, oh, I'm playing the Beastmaster class, but I have a gunner
Yeah.
anoint, so like it's kind of useless, but you can re-roll them now. So that makes the end game min maxing a little easier and
Yeah.
less annoying for that game.
Yeah, and like I think the appeal of like min maxing in Diablo is to do the content like faster, right? Or like
Right. Yeah. Min maxing usually isn't required
yeah, it
to
isn't required
to
to be good
actually
at the
do
game.
anything,
That's for
but
sure. Um, but yeah, the Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 have like such different gear philosophies and like gameplay philosophies in general, but they both fall under the same genre, which is
hmm.
interesting. Um, I played a lot of Diablo 2 when I was a kid, so I don't remember much. But the game is feels a little bit slower in a way.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what it looked like at a
Yeah.
first glance for me, having never played it.
Yeah, the game definitely takes a little bit to get going, but was it there's so many different like there's even more combinations and stuff that you can do because of how the builds work and stuff. Because now in Diablo 2 you have skill points and attribute points that you're also spending to make a build. Whereas in Diablo 3 it's more about your gear, right, and your skill setup than your stats essentially. So overall though, both games are good. I enjoy both. I enjoy the build aspect of Diablo 2, and then I also enjoy the sort of gear aspect of Diablo 3 as well.
It was real fun to just like kill entire screens of enemies in that game. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, enemy density and in those games are always fun to see. Just like you wipe out an entire mob in one hit, something like that, right?
I was watching somebody stream the other day who is a Path of Exile player,
Oh yeah.
and they were looking at the changes that are coming to Path of Exile soon, and that's a game that I have never played. Also,
Yeah.
I've never played that either, but it gave me Diablo 3 vibes.
Yeah.
Where it's like very fast paced, dungeon crawly. Like you have a build and you just like mow through high density
Yeah.
enemies and stuff.
Yeah. That
Um,
game is even more complicated with how its like build system works.
right. Yeah, I know very little about that game.
Yeah, I know very little about it too, but like I remember passing by a stream where he was like explaining how his build works and like how each gear piece like interacts with each other, and I was like, that's too much for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally. But like that's really cool though. I'm glad that a game that's even more complicated does exist out there for those people that love to chase that kind of stuff. Guess since we did mention it, we may as well move on to Borderlands. I think this is one of the games that both of us have played a lot of.
Played a lot of this game, yeah.
This series in general, yeah.
Yeah, I think you've played more Borderlands 2 than I have, and I've played more Borderlands 3 than you have.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because there's other issues that we won't
arose.
get into now, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
That just detracted from my experience. I think that if had that not detract from my experience, I probably would have actually enjoyed the game.
You would have played it for longer, but knowing how much like we both enjoy Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3 like is different in a lot of ways. In some ways it's good, and in some ways it's not good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, did we even actually say what we liked about Diablo? We mentioned like what it was and how it works. But like, if you could pick like two or three like aspects that you could like,
I really like
like extract from the Diablo formula, what would it be?
I really like how their gear, like the individual gear pieces, all kind of interact with each other. Because there's sets that give you different ways to play that class or like that style of class, and then there's also just legendary pieces that interact with those sets as well, or you can just make a full piece of or a full build of like legendary pieces that all interact with each other in some way that give you a different way of playing the game that isn't in a set, I guess.
Right.
But I do really like the gear system in Diablo as a whole. I think that they've done it's just really good.
I would argue that that's the most important part of a game like that. If it's a looter game, so the gear you get should be cool.
Yeah.
So and if that clicks together, then that's a successful looter game.
Yeah.
I feel like so.
Yeah, because each class, there's so many different like legendary weapons, but like each legendary weapon isn't the same thing because they all come with like some sort of some sort of subtext that like changes the way that like
Right.
something works, right? So
Hmm.
that's always like that was my favorite thing about playing that game was just finding those pieces and finding a way on how to like make that fit into what I'm doing at that moment.
That I think is the perfect segue to talk about Borderlands, because Borderlands legendary items are like fucking wild.
Yeah, even non-legendary like
Actually, yeah,
stuff.
just like unique items in
Yeah,
general.
the
Yeah.
the unique items, like just all the unique items in that game, was they're so weird, but like they're also so cool.
Hmm.
Because I remember playing Borderlands 1 and getting the TK's wave for the first
Yep.
time, and I
Yeah,
was just
the
like,
wave pellet shotgun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a shotgun that shoots like waves of like a tidal wave, like a tidal wave of just like pellets, which is like so weird. At the when I was playing it for the first time, I was like shocked that that wasn't even a thing that could be done in that game. And then you get even further into like just the Borderlands series in general, and all of the guns are just weird, in some way. Yeah, guns shooting giant blobs of bubbles that kill entire screens.
Oh yeah, like the
The
e-tech weapons and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, the e-tech launchers.
Yeah. My favorite part about Borderlands is just um like the skill trees in that game are just like so big, and you have so many skill points that like you just get to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
And yet, while yes, there are like quote unquote like correct choices for like guns that are just better than others,
mm,
like we said, since there's so many wacky weird weapons, you could just like use whatever you want, and
yeah,
it's fine.
yeah.
So like you can play like the gunslinger and wield two of the best guns in the game at the same time, or you could run like
Two
double rocket
rocket
launchers
launchers.
and like yeah, rocket jump at people and stuff. Like and it's yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. The skill trees in that game really make the classes stand
yeah, and
out for sure.
I would say like say what you want about like Borderlands 3 or even the pre-sequel. People like kind of hold the pre-sequel as like a lower standard than like Borderlands 2 specifically.
Mm,
But the pre-sequel and then also they kind of carried it over into Borderlands 3. Some of the skills like are really unique in how they work.
yeah,
Because in Borderlands 2, it's just like your skills are like, oh, I have increased attack speed, or I have more gun damage, or I have a kill skill, or something that
yeah,
activates after you defeat an enemy. They have some of that in Borderlands 3 and the pre-sequel, but there's also just like weird and wacky things like melee overrides and like
my
I can't even remember some of them. Like the
my
claptrap skill tree,
yeah,
just go and look at that.
yeah.
Like they're just wild.
My
And
favorite.
like yeah, and even especially in Borderlands 3, the like the gameplay diversity between the skill trees in a single character is even really
Yeah,
diverse.
yeah,
Because like the character that I like a lot in Borderlands 3 is the operative Zane, and he has a skill tree that is just 100% kill skills where they activate after you kill an enemy.
mm,
So he's like kind of weak if you don't have any of those active, but as soon as you get a kill, he's just massively OP because he has all these bonus stats and kill skills and stuff. And then your gameplay is kind of like you want to chain from kill to kill to kill to try to keep uptime on those skills.
you turn into Doom Guy.
But then if you don't want to do that, you don't have to invest in that skill tree, and then there's a separate one that is just about his action skills, where you want to keep uptime on your skills instead, and
Mm,
have your skill because he has like a drone and a clone that he can throw out, and the new skill tree he has like a laser cannon on his shoulder,
mm,
so your gameplay is more like skill cooldown focused instead of chaining kills to kills.
yeah.
So like the build diversity just within a character is super high and super interesting, which I think is pretty cool. And that's in all this time I've been talking, that's just one character, and there's four of them. So
My favorite skill from the pre-sequel and Claptrap's kit was the high five skill.
the high five skill, yeah, dude,
That one was
it
really
was
funny. That was really funny. It was a skill where if you would ask for a high five from your team, and if you didn't get a high five, you get a buff. Only you get a buff, and then if you're a teammate high five you, everyone gets a buff. Which
And that's
is
just
really
like
funny.
there's nothing that creative in the games prior to that in the series,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Because even like the pre-sequel character that I played a lot of was Wilhelm, where he's supposed to be like this cyborg guy, and one of his skill trees was about like cyber augmenting your physical body, so it was less about your guns and your action skill and more just like he ran faster and
yeah,
he like had a melee override ability that gave him like a robot arm and stuff,
yeah.
and no other characters had that kind of gameplay.
Right. Yeah. No. Borderlands. Borderlands is very unique in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think I would fit Borderlands as kind of like the granddaddy daddy of looter shooters, right?
Looter shooters,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It kind of
Even like yeah.
jumpstart that genre
hmm
for sure.
One more aspect that they kind of refined a little more in Borderlands 3 is that like farming for stuff is like a core part of the Borderlands experience, because like certain bosses have like dedicated drops for legendary items and things.
Yeah.
So like every once in a while, this is the game that I was talking about earlier in the episode, where like every once in a while I kind of circle back to a
Mm,
Borderlands game, just because there's like, even if you have like a quote unquote max character and you're like you can't gain any more XP because you're max level,
yeah.
you can always get like higher tier items with better stats and stuff.
Yep.
So in Borderlands 3, they made it really easy to just like refarm a boss over and over and over. Um,
Oh, that's
that's not
really nice.
always that's not always the most fun thing to do, but every once in a while I get in that mood to just like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna kill Grave Ward for like 4 hours. And I just think it's really fun. Just like, I
Yeah.
know he drops this item, and I've gotten one of these items before, but it's not the best of the version. And sometimes that's just fun to try and get that.
Yeah.
Because Borderlands has like all the guns have like parts. Like I have an unkempt herald, but I don't have an unkempt herald with the right prefix and a matching grip, and I
Mm,
want to get it.
yeah.
So you could just sit and just farm and farm and farm,
Oh yeah.
and sometimes that's just fun to do. So Borderlands does that well, where you can just sit and do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Was it? I remember sitting and one-shotting to try and get my Norfleet over and
Right?
over
Yeah.
again, like my
You
perfect
cheese
Norfleet.
Hyperius over and over.
Yeah, I mean that was the best way for me to get a Norfleet as a siren, so I always did it to try and get perfect Norfleets. Um, but yeah, like I spent a lot of time doing that same exact thing that you were saying, and anytime that I go back and play that game, I still do that same thing. I just find it fun, personally.
Yeah, it's not always the most fun, because then like something, actually this might be a good segue into another looter shooter that we've both played a lot of is like sometimes when you're like looking for an item, and if the only way to get it is you just hope to RNG into it,
Yeah,
then that kind of like dampens the fun.
yeah,
But something that the Division 2 does really well is that on certain difficulties and during certain activities, you can set what you want your gear to get skewed towards.
oh yeah,
Which I think is super cool. So like
yeah,
the Division 2 is another looter shooter where it's kind of set in modern era the United States. So all the guns and weapons and stuff are just like, like military
actual
issue,
military
like M4s
weapons.
and like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So during certain activities and in different like world level difficulties, you can set what you want to skew the gear towards. So like, oh, I'm doing an assault rifle build and I'm doing this activity. You can just go in and set, I want to get assault rifles.
yeah.
And then you just get more of them. So it helps you kind of find the pieces that you need for your build. And I don't remember playing any other games that do anything similar to that, which is awesome.
Yeah, there isn't any other games where they allow you to see what those areas drop, right? Or
hmm
even like being able to set your own gear that you want to get. Even then, I think that we came into the game at a good time where that feature had come out after release, and we had, we got to
Right, yeah.
experience it. So, um, yeah, that game definitely does the. You're chasing for something. Let's make it easier for you to go and chase for that thing, right? And make it better. Um, and that also makes the game just like it moves players towards more of the, hey, would you like to try and min max? Because that game makes it even easier to min max with how the recalibration system works, and being able to store stats in a place to like reuse.
Yeah, the stat library.
Yeah, I think the like I think the thing that I really enjoy about that game too is that it's definitely a game that if you play with a group of friends or like
Oh yeah,
a team,
for sure.
like the build diversity just then like goes way up, because now you have like a full team that you're coordinating with, like each kind of individual build and stuff. You're all working together.
Yeah, I guess we'll
During
say for
combat.
people that don't know, the Division and then the Division 2, the sequel, they're third person like tactical like cover shooters.
Yeah,
And then you have like your weapons that you can use, but then you also have like a couple of skills that kind of vary in different ways. There's like support skills and damage skills and stuff like that. So yeah,
yeah,
like you were saying, having a team to play with allows you to like, oh, I'm gonna be it actually just allows you to be like Holy Trinity RPG if you really wanted to.
yeah,
You could have like, oh, I'm the DPS guy, so I have like an assault rifle and a turret and like a grenade launcher or something. And you
yeah,
can have someone who's like a sniper support where you like debuff enemies and heal your teammates and stuff like that. So
yeah,
yeah, playing in a group with that game was really fun because you get to shoot stuff and pick up items and do these cool team comps.
yeah, yeah. It was also nice too because division, the division, uh, got the same thing of like you can do whatever you want and you'll get loot for it, so you can
Yeah.
just be running out in the open world and like clearing like control like areas that enemies are holding down, and you'll get loot for it. And then in Division 2, obviously, just like we were discussing, you get specific loot for it, right? So that made the overall sort of experience of that game very fun
It was like, yeah, you could be as deliberate as you wanted with what exactly you were doing, or you could just do literally whatever you wanted and you were just rewarded for it
yeah,
all the time.
yeah. And I think that was a really good aspect of that game, honestly, that I really really enjoyed.
They improved a lot from the first game in the second one for sure,
Mm,
with just like basically everything, like all the gameplay, how the game looked, and then the loot systems, which arguably the most important thing in a looter shooter. Is really fun to interact with just because like you just got to do what you wanted and get rewarded for it. So.
yeah, and then it's fun to play a like cooperative tactical shooter
Right.
too, like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like because it really is the only kind of one in that loot or in that pool of games. So,
Yeah, because like Borderlands, you can play co-op with your friends, but like you can all just run around and shoot stuff, and it doesn't really matter. But in that
yeah,
game, in the Division, when you get up to higher difficulties, like coordination is key to get through some of those activities.
oh yeah,
It was really fun when you got to do them because like that kind of added the like the refarmable aspect thing too, because it's like all the activities like have like kind of like soft encounters, so like you can learn them as you go and like, oh, okay, we got through this room, we know the big dude with the machine gun is next, so we can prep for it because we all have our skills and stuff, so that
yeah,
adds to like the refarming thing. You can just like feel yourself getting better at the activities you're doing, which is always nice.
yeah. And then was it even in like the procedurally dungeon, like kind of generated dungeons in that game? It was so much fun to like each room was kind of like a puzzle, right?
Right, yeah.
Because now
Like the fight caves.
yeah, yeah, it's like the fight games, except you can't save spot everything.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, that game was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed that game. I'll probably go back and play it at some point.
I'm down.
I think that game is supposed to get an update soon. we'll talk about this game though. That falls into the looter shooter genre. That
Yeah,
is
the
probably
last
the
looter
most known,
shooter.
probably the most well-known looter shooter at this point in
I think
time.
so. Yeah.
Destiny, Destiny 1, Destiny 2. I think Witch Queen comes out in like 3 months, or is supposed to speculated to come out in like 3-4 months, something like that. Destiny. Oh man, what a game.
Yeah, this is the looter shooter we've played the most of for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. We've definitely spent a lot of time playing this game. I'll just get this out of the way right now and say the gunplay in this game, phenomenal.
Yeah, dude,
Absolutely.
it feels really good to shoot stuff in Destiny.
Yeah. Every gun in the game feels good. Even the guns that you would say don't feel good to shoot still feel good to shoot.
Yeah, they don't even need to be like special guns with high
Yeah.
stats. It's just like when you're leveling through the early game, you just like yeah, it just feels good.
It feels good to shoot stuff. Was it all the guns like it, each each one of the weapon classes is interesting, um, and it you definitely feel the difference between shooting a high rate of fire auto rifle to a slower rate of fire hand cannon, right? So they're like just the fact that they're able to like make that different is really cool about that game.
Yeah. High point activity wise for Destiny has always been raids. I think you could say without argument.
Oh yeah.
The raids in Destiny are really awesome.
Yep, for sure.
That's what keeps us and our group, our play group, keep coming back to that game because it's always like a bit of a cycle with Destiny where new stuff comes out and we'll play a bunch and then we'll do the raid a bunch and then we'll kind of like play less and less as time goes on. But as long as raids keep coming out, we're gonna keep going back to it because they're just a fun team experience.
They're a fun team experience, and usually the raid loot is like not bad. So, but it does get to a point where you have all the raid loot, and you're really just doing it to hang out with your friends, right? Hashtag the friend game.
Exactly. I would say, yeah, of the looter shooters that we've talked about so far, the three, this game has the least amount of loot in it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um,
it has the least amount of variance in your loot too.
right.
There's less that you have to worry about when you're farming for Destiny stuff.
Yeah,
Which
there's
is
just like less stats in the game, so there's like the difference between the min and the max is less than a Diablo.
yeah,
Which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing because some people don't like I have to play 500 hours to get a min-maxed character.
right.
Some people are like, I've done the raid and I have the items that I want, and like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Now I can just go and do whatever I want with raid items.
Yeah, I think Destiny does the loot game kind of in a mid section where it's a medium of like it satisfies those people who don't min max, and then those people that want to min max definitely can, but they don't have to, like, for sure.
Yeah, it sometimes is, I think, for some people it's sometimes hard to even classify Destiny as an RPG because like we've even like had interviews with the developers, Bungie themselves, where like they've said that they want Destiny to be more of a shooter than an RPG.
Yeah.
And that's kind of changed over time a little bit, but
yeah, not.
But yeah,
not
like it's more of a shooter than an RPG, kind of on purpose.
Yeah.
So that's the effect that it's gonna have is it's less of an RPG, so there's less RPG elements like min-maxing or whatever.
Yeah, less stats, less perks that you have to worry about.
Yeah, and then again, not a bad thing, just something that needs to be addressed since we're talking about this kind of topic. So.
Oh. Everything else that they do is pretty cool though. All the abilities and all the classes and stuff. The story.
Yeah,
of
the game,
is really
the gameplay is awesome. The story is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a very interesting world in Destiny. All the enemies are like they are actually different. The different enemy races.
Mm.
And then of course, the highest point of the game is shooting things, because you're gonna be doing it a lot, and it feels good to shoot stuff. I can't. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like
Yeah,
that's
there
the
because Destiny's been around for a while, so like
and it's free to play. Go play it.
Destiny 2 is free to play. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, go try it out.
We've been
Go
talking
shoot some.
primarily about Destiny 2. I feel like Destiny 1. I feel like it's probably harder to go back and play that game.
Oh yeah, for
There's
sure.
been a lot of quality of life, but um, the thing I liked about the first Destiny was I'm trying to figure out how to best word this. Like I feel like, in my opinion, you could get away with a little more as far as like your weapon choices in activities in Destiny 1, but
Um,
I might be like misremembering a little bit, because I remember like when we do Wrath of the Machine, I swap my weapons for basically every encounter, and I don't know if that's just me.
I think it's the it's that power creep that when power creep hit in Destiny 2, it hit really hard.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what is the layout now, or what is the loadout nowadays for Destiny 2? It's like a hand cannon, something, and then like anarchy.
Yeah.
But
And that
it's difficult for them to really do anything about that weapon in general, right? So, but
I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering.
I would say that the diversity in weapons in Destiny 1 was real. Was it there? I think another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that Destiny 2 had to go through a massive like weapon overhaul in general.
That is true, yeah.
So like that kind of changed how a lot of things worked in general too, right? Because they had to retune everything. But I mean, I think even in Destiny 2, you can kind of get away with using whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as you're having fun, that's really the point of it. But yeah, I guess we can just we can move into our next game here.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter. So you and I have only played Monster Hunter World.
Yes. Very limited Monster Hunter as far as like the series goes, but we played a shit ton of Monster Hunter World though.
Yeah, I feel like this was the this is the entry point for me in the Monster Hunter series. That's for sure.
I feel like it was an entry point for a lot of people too.
Yeah, it was
but...
if I remember correctly, this was the first like massive next gen launch for Monster Hunter.
Right. Yeah.
That's why a lot of people were actually able to like play it. But like, wow, what a game!
Yeah, we played a lot. This game was super fun.
This game was
actually.
Really good. Boss fights the game.
Boss fights video game, pretty much. Yeah.
And like, each weapon just like felt so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the different weapon styles are just so awesome and so
cool.
Different, and
it
felt like because there's no like strict like character classes in the game, but like that's what your weapon style was that dictated your play style and your just like how you played the game. I thought it was cool that just like basically everybody's a DPS.
I really liked that was your gear. Whatever you were equipped with really really defined how you
Yeah,
how
all the
play.
armor skills and
Yeah.
stuff.
And then like being able to slot things with the gem system to like make whatever kind of like player you are, right? Because you can have like a DPS hunting horn that buffs the entire team, or you can have a support hunting horn, someone that like
Yeah,
likes to
that's
heal
true too.
people, right? Was it a even like even bowgun users are different. You have a pierce bowgunner, a normal bowgunner, a spread bowgunner. You have a bowgunner that's more of a support that heals people. Someone that like is good at doing status effects. There was so much that you could do in Monster Hunter, and it wasn't always just strict. Hey, you're playing. You're only a DPS, right? Because like
Right.
you're like, yeah, I have to do damage to the monster, but I want to do it in like this way, right?
Yeah, I go when we were first starting the game and like other people were joining us, and they're always like, "Oh, what, like, what's the best? What should I use?" And the answer is always, "It depends."
What do
It's like,
you like?
well, what? Say again?
Well, it's like my answer to that was always like, well, what do you like? What looks cool to you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But yeah, because the best thing for this particular monster is different
Yeah.
for this one versus
Yeah.
this one versus, oh, I'm this weapon class, so do I want to do elemental? Well, no, that weapon doesn't do elemental very well, but you can do this. But if you're using this against this monster, then you might want to do elemental, and it's just like all these different combinations depending on what you're using and what you're fighting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that every monster was like different too.
Yeah, you basically had to just like think about like every piece of gear you had
and
for
like
every monster in the
yeah.
game, and there was like 40 of them.
Yeah, and like your playstyle changed too,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what monster you were facing, right? So like, if
Yeah.
you're using your greatsword against like this really fast dragon, you might play a more hit and run style than like a bow user can just like dodge out of the way and keep shooting things. So, uh, yeah, that game was.
The best part about Monster Hunter was just like when you have the monster on download and you just like know all his moves.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, he did this animation. I know exactly what to do. I just like parry or I dodge this, and then I'm gonna have exactly this much time where he's animation locked, so I can do damage, and then I can dodge again. Like, yeah, just having the monster on download felt really good because then you just like your builds get slowly like more and more DPS focused and less like keeping myself alive focused. So you just like pump damage because if you know the moves, you just never get hit, and that just feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that game. The fact that the game, you generally went in with like a comfy loadout, and then like as you got better, you can start switching into a more just like speedrunner loadout. I like to call it, or a speed kill kind of loadout.
I had the Ian loadout where you never had any defensive skills and you just get one shotted.
Until you get one shotted enough to where you're like, yeah.
And then you're like, all right, fine, I'll put health boost to my armor. Sad.
Yeah, that game was fun. Even just like farming for the loot is just so much fun because you're facing the same monsters again, but like each monster gives you some sort of part of them that you can then go and craft into your gear. And that was
that again does really well with like, I want this set of armor or I want this weapon. You know exactly where you need to go to get it, and you can just refarm that monster over and over. And like, yes, there's RNG and like you need to get the specific parts, and there are like rare drops and stuff that you're gonna have to farm for. But it's not just like I just have to luck into it because I have no, like, it's just a random drop, world drop or something. It's not. That's not the case. You know exactly where you need to go to get what you need and what you want. So.
And you just get better at it.
Right. Yeah. As you do it more, it gets better and easier to get what you want.
Yeah. Because I remember when like I would dread going to like fight a certain monster because I need to like get those pieces, and then like as I did it more, I just got better and better at it. So. Were you a charge blade main? All throughout your Monster Hunter career?
I played basically exclusively Charge Blade until like the very, very end of Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and then I started dabbling in like a bunch of other stuff, just because we had played the game for so long at that point that I'm like basically I played the same thing until the end of my Monster Hunter career, and I didn't get bored of Charge Blade until the
Yeah.
very end. Like that's another thing too. Is like, yeah, you're getting better at like fighting the monster as you play it more and more. But it's just like if you're like a paladin main in WoW, like since you play paladin all the time, you just get really good at. I know exactly what I need to do with any of my spells or like the mechanics I need because of
Mhm.
my class. Same thing carries over to your weapon style. Like, oh, I fought this monster and I've used this weapon, so I know exactly how much damage I do. I know exactly how long all my animations are, so I know how aggressive I can be.
Yeah.
And Charge Blade was big damage all the time, so
Yeah.
I was all about that.
I didn't. I think that's really funny.
And then I switched to Longsword, which is also just like big damage, just less bursty and more sustained damage.
you had you had some more movement options.
More movement options, yeah, with Longsword.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you just want to like look super cool using really big ass weapons. Like that's what Monster Hunter is, man. It's so cool.
It is. I'm excited for when Rise comes on PC because then I'll definitely be picking that
Yeah,
up. And
yeah.
playing
Hop on the PC train when that port's over for sure.
that. Oh, for sure. I've seen a little bit of like gameplay of it, and I'm like, that game looks really fun. But I'm sad that I don't want to play it on a Switch.
Yeah, yeah.
That's alright. It's been confirmed. It's coming to PC. We'll be fine. Uh, I will come back with my greatsword.
That's another game too where playing with friends is super fun.
Yeah, yeah. Playing with your friends is definitely is super duper fun. Corey, it's always I always thought it was hilarious, like the positioning of like where you're swinging your weapon and stuff actually matters in that game too. Because like you get
Right,
the,
yeah.
the light weapon users like swinging around and flinching everyone, which is really funny.
Yeah. Or I just like how for some of the bigger monsters, like you can kind of tell what weapons people are using based on like where they position themselves to
Oh
fight
yeah,
the monster.
yeah,
So like yeah, like bowgun users want to kind of be in front of the monster, like looking straight on because you want to shoot him in the head or
yeah,
whatever. But like longsword users are always positioned at the back of the monster because they have an easier time getting like a tail cut if you can sever the tail on the monster. And then
mm-hmm.
like hammer users want to be at the head, while like dual blades maybe want to be on the side, like on their feet. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it just looks cool. It's just like you're just like literally fighting a raid boss
you're
every time you fight a monster in that game. It's just really cool.
you're actually a hunting squad.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, all the weapons look super cool too.
They're all super cool, yeah, because you can just find a monster you like, and like their kind of aesthetics, they're added to the weapons and armor. So
Yeah,
like, you're like, oh, these monsters so cool. You can just like look like that
yeah,
whenever you want. It's super cool.
yeah. That was one of my favorite parts about was
That's yeah,
the fashion
that's
in the
another
game too.
game. The fashion, yeah, but like I say this a lot. You'll probably hear me. I've said this a lot already, and you'll hear me say it in future episodes. Like the feeling of getting better at something is always really satisfying, and that's another game where that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. And then all the loot that you get is pretty meaningful,
Right, yeah.
right?
Because basically,
You get the monster
um,
parts, then you start getting like gems you can start putting into your armor.
right, yeah. Um, what I was gonna say is like, depending on what monster you're fighting, there's just like, technically the best in slot items are always different, which is pretty cool.
Mm,
Because like, yeah, like if you're fighting the fire monster, you want the ice weapon, and which would be best in slot, but not necessarily if you don't fight the ice monster with the ice weapon,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
So
yeah. That gosh, that reminds me when Elatrion came out, and all of a
that switched
sudden,
up the
yeah,
builds.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden, all of like the all classes of weapons were switching to like these weird off weapons that you know, not not everyone had at the time, because you're like, well, if I'm a big unga bunga like weapon, why do I want an element on it? Or like even when that wasn't the case, there are some weapons where it's just like it's better to have that just in case in some ways, you know. Like you could have a hammer with like paralysis on it, and it's like, is that best in slot against this monster? Well, probably not, but you could definitely get one off on, this monster, which was always fun.
Yeah, because all the monsters had different stats and stuff, so
Yep.
yeah, I really had to think about all of that stuff.
Yeah, that was always fun to figure out. I think we've just been gushing about Monster Hunter for the last like 10 minutes here.
That's true. Yeah, we played a lot of that game.
I really like that game. I really like the gameplay loop of that game. That game was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
And yeah, like we said, since like it's a looter, it fits into that genre, all the items are meaningful, and that's the important part.
Yeah. All the items were meaningful. All the weapons looked cool. Gosh. Even just like running around and exploring the areas.
Right, yeah, because there's a whole other half of that game, and it's the gathering and
Yeah.
like making and crafting items and stuff.
Yep.
That's the things you're doing when you're not fighting the monster, and that part's even
That
fun
part's
to
even
interact with
fun.
as well.
Yeah. I remember like
Oh.
hunting down, or not even hunting down, like seeing all the wildlife, like,
Yeah.
and they would react to you like running around too, which was really cool. Yeah, all the environments are just great. And then you get your own cat, so.
And then you get a pet cat.
Yeah, you get your pet sidekick cat. Name him whatever you want, like Broman Dude. Shoutouts to Broman Dude.
Oh my god. That's hilarious.
All right. Do we have anything else here for this?
I don't think so. Looters, I feel like on the surface are pretty like I want to say like simple, but like the core gameplay in essence is fairly simple. You want to do something that's fun and get something meaningful at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all around the items, right? It's all around the gear.
yeah, that's the main drive of any looter. It should be the loot.
Yeah.
And so, some do that better than others. This isn't to say that like no looter games have good story, because like Borderlands 2, I feel like has a pretty good story and it's funny.
Oh, yeah.
Destiny has an amazing story, and lore and all that stuff. But the drive of the looter games should be the loot.
Yeah. There's some games that
And the ways you go about them too. Like if the loot's cool, that's one thing. But if like the activities I do to get the loot are really boring, so it makes it isn't fun to get the loot. That also has to be taken into account, because if all the items in Destiny, let's say, are really fun to use, but the raids are really bad, then like that doesn't make me want to play the game either,
Right.
So
yeah, there's definitely some games that I like that would fit in the genre, but I feel like there are other the other gameplay aspect and element of it that makes it that I can put off and hold for potentially a future episode. So these were the 5 games that we were talking about today. So we talked about Borderlands, we talked about Division, Destiny, Monster Hunter, Diablo. We just want to recap of like things that we liked from all of them. We can just start with the one that's on.
yeah, because like I said before, we could like extract the essence of the good parts of all these games. I think I would say Borderlands, sheer number of items and like the creativeness of the items.
Yeah, the creativeness
I would
of
say
those items are very, very good. They're all so different.
There's so many items,
the same.
so many unique ones that have they just all act different, and that's what would I say for the Division? I would say
the targeted loot,
because it's just like I can get what I want in my looter game, and that's awesome.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
would say something we didn't really touch on a whole lot when we were talking about it earlier is like the build diversity is pretty expansive in that game. If you wanted
Yeah.
to be a support class with this type of weapon type, you could do that. If you want to be a sniper or a heavy gunner or a riot shield guy or a machine gun guy or
Mm,
a SMG up in your face guy or whatever,
yeah.
you can do all of that and it works. And then I think also the
The
co-op in that
co-op.
game is very
The
fun.
co-op in that game is amazing.
All right.
Destiny.
Destiny, I would say I'm just rattling off all my ideas. Just say more if you have more. Otherwise,
No, I agree with you. Destiny shooting. Oh, shooting
yeah,
feels so good in this game.
the gameplay itself is just really fun to interact with.
Yeah,
Um, and then I would say the raids.
the raids. Yeah,
The
the
raids
raids for
are
sure.
like like we said before, we don't want to turn it into a rant, so we're not going to say too many like negative things about any of the games. But by far the best activities in Destiny are the raids for sure.
For sure, I agree. Monster Hunter.
Boss fights the video game, man. Like, but yeah. So for that, I'd say meaningful items like we've been talking about for all of these. All your gear matters.
Yep.
That it's like a deck builder almost, where you put all these little parts together, and then it comes out to be this like project.
Yeah.
It all just like functions and synergizes within itself.
Yep.
That's really satisfying because you get to because like doing mixed sets and stuff like is super interesting because you take all these pieces from all these different monsters, put them together, and they synergize, and you can add all your gems and stuff. So yeah, making builds and getting the monster on download, I think are the things that I would extract from that. Just
Yeah.
like being able to refarm something that has mechanics adjacent type things.
Mm.
Because they're not really like raid boss mechanics, it's just like dodging attacks.
Yeah.
But, learning those things to make your runs fluid and efficient are the things that I like a lot.
I would say that for me, the making a build in that game is a lot of fun, and then the combat, just the combat flow in general with any of the weapons, is it would be what I extrapolate from that, because the combat is so much fun. It doesn't matter what weapon you're using, like it's it's always interesting. And then Diablo, any of the Diablo series. I love the loot in Diablo. I'm just gonna say that right now. The loot in Diablo is super cool. Was it the fact that each of them does like something? It's almost like the way that I can put was the like legendary items in like a Destiny way. Is like, imagine legendary items are exotics, but you can wear them everywhere.
Yeah,
on
pretty much
any of your slots, and like that's so much fun.
Yeah, I can't say a whole lot about Diablo because one, I've only played Diablo 3, and two, I only played Demon Hunter. So like whenever we would do like seasonal stuff, I would literally just do the same thing every time and just play Demon Hunter. And like if set like armor sets and stuff got changed, I would like try them all out, but then I would just like default to the multi-shot build every time.
What sets have you used from that though?
I've used Unhallowed Essence.
Yeah, that's the multi-shot.
That's the multi-shot one, and then I've used the turret one, whatever one that was.
Oh yeah, the sentries one.
The sentries one, where
Yeah.
you could put down a bunch of sentry turrets, and then they would shoot at like
the same thing that you shot.
Yeah, so you could just like clear the entire thing just like without moving on your screen. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, those are the things I did, and that game scratched the itch of I've said this in a couple episodes where I like to like just like move fast while I do things. And Demon Hunter did that. I would like tumble, shoot a bunch of stuff, tumble, shoot a bunch of stuff, tumble, shoot a bunch of stuff, and just like be constantly moving and shooting.
Honestly,
so that was really fun to do.
Honestly, if you liked that, you would have loved Crusaders thing.
Right, because they like jump around.
Oh no, they it's their speed build what I remembered it was a horse build.
Oh.
So like your movement skill was a horse. You rode a horse, and then it was a thorns build, I believe. So like the set radiated like an aura of damage around you.
Right.
So like you would essentially ride into an area, blow up the entire area, and then ride off into the sunset.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get into Path of Exile because from what I've seen, it looks like that it's like that similar type of thing, but that I gotta deal with Blizzard. Maybe we'll try that out.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know if it's free. Is it free?
It is free to play. Path of Exile is free to play.
Okay, maybe we're trying that out.
All right. Anywho, I think that's it. I got nothing else to say about Borderlands, Division. We hit on Destiny, Monster Hunter, Diablo. Random segment of the day is getting back into playing rhythm games again. Physical activity in DDR.
It's hard.
It is hard. I went back and I played. I'm getting back into playing like 14s. I think I'm starting to get back into being able to play more 13s consistently, but I'm still worn out. I can't play for it nearly as long as I used to.
Me too. Don't worry.
I did, however, get a new PFC today. So
what was that?
Let's see here. I took a screenshot of it. Oh, it was Love You More. The difficult chart, the 12th
I
chart.
I see.
Was it a pretty PFC? No, but it was a PFC, all right. I'll take it.
I mean,
I'll take it.
PFC is a PFC, yeah.
PFC is a PFC. Anywho. That's it for our random segment of the day.
Awesome.
Shoutouts to you, the viewers, the listeners at home or wherever. And that's it. That's all I have. I have been your host, Alex. Again, with the boy. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks for watching. Do the YouTube stuff.